got a story to tell you, man. I talked to this woman this week, Yeonmi Park, and she wrote a book called In Order to Live. She's an escapee from North Korea. And like she had quite the life, man. Like starvation, then slavery. That kind of sums up her life. She had to sell her own mother, whom she loved. I mean, you just think about that for like 15 minutes and see where it gets you. And she was literally a slave in China. And she struggled through all that, ended up in South Korea and went to a South Korean university. She did all her education in 1 year, elementary, junior high, and high school in 1 year, passed the GED and got into a competitive South Korean university. It's like, this is quite the girl. And her book, it wraps up in 2015. So I asked her about what's happened in recent years. She went to Columbia University. So imagine this girl struggles out of North Korea and slavery and pursues her education and gets to go to an Ivy League school in New York. It's like the pinnacle of her ambition. She was drastically affected by George Orwell's Animal Farm when she was in South Korea. It's one of the first classic books she read, and that's what made her decide to write and to speak. So she can understand the value of the humanities, like virtually no one else can. She went to Columbia. I said, well, how was that? She said, it was a complete waste of time and money. And I said, well, wait a second. You can't really mean that. Surely, in your 4 years studying humanities at Columbia, you must have had one professor or one course that spoke to you, you know, the way that the books that you were reading spoke to you, that the person made the attempt to push past the limitations of the institution and mentored you. She mentioned one human biology class where she learned about evolution, but said that that was all twisted by political correctness near the end. And that was all she could muster up for 4 years of she said that she felt just about as stymied in her freedom of speech at Columbia University studying humanities as she did in bloody North Korea. That's what we're doing to our young people. It's so appalling, so appalling. There's so much that people can be offered. This richness of the past, so much that's desperately necessary. This isn't optional. You know, the idea that man does not live by bread alone. That's not religious claptrap.
What's your opinion on the North American view of what suffering is? Like, say, millennials or Gen Z and their complaints about life nowadays. It's got to be annoying.
Well, I know, like, I went to Columbia University in New York.
Oh, okay.
And, oh my gosh, that really made me scared, you know? Like, by the time when I was born in North Korea, I didn't even know what alternative life was possible. Like, my grandma knew, like, she was living under the, like, Japanese colonialism. But because that generation kept silent, by the time when I was born in North Korea, I didn't even know what love was. I didn't even know what liberty was. So that is very scary right now. Like, we are keep eliminating things that we cannot talk about, we cannot discuss. And if we all stay silent out of fear, like, who the heck is gonna be when it comes to our grandchildren? They are never even gonna know the word like now existed.
Yeah, you get a lot of people right now, especially with the political correctness thing that's going on in North America. You have a lot of people say, oh, I'm scared and that's why I don't say anything.
Yeah.
But that sounds like less of a good excuse if you escaped from North Korea.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, it is, I mean, people, I mean, this is how the authoritarian regime starts, like how the government becomes like this and try to silence anybody else who disagrees, right? Like in capitalism, you can be socialist, you can be communist, we can coexist with them. Like, it's wonderful. I mean, whoever thinks so-called socialism is great, communism, I'm fine with that, as long as I can think that capitalism is great. But if you are a capitalist in socialism, you're going to be executed. But that is the difference. Like, if you're a capitalist, believing in free market in North Korea, you will be sent to prison camp and executed with three generations of your family. But the beauty of America is that I can coexist with the AOC. Like, I can be friends with the people who worship socialism. I'm fine with it, but like, the point is when like they want me to accept their faith as something God-given faith, so I cannot think differently. And I think that's what's happening in America, and it's been really scary. Like this year, I've been really like, I used to think, oh, America's great, like their freedom is never gonna like go away. But I see like how freedom is fragile, and it's just one generation away. We can just lose it.
Yeah. This year's been scary seeing how quickly things can deteriorate, even with the protesting. And I mean, that's part of what happens when you, I suppose, lock down people and make them stay inside, right? Then they're not going to be too happy.
Yeah, I mean, like people say, like, how ridiculous the governments tell you what kind of haircut to have in North Korea, right? That's like the West made fun of North Koreans in the past. Like, North Koreans have to have certain haircuts. Like, look like Kim Jong-un, they made a like certain haircut available for the people. So you can, of course, like, your haircut, you're gonna go to prison right now in North Korea if you look like that. So, like, they make you, like, they send you to prison for wearing jeans. And people are like, that's so ridiculous. Now we're in the country where you get fined if you don't put that on like mask on in certain states. And they tell you how many people can sit in your dinner table for like Thanksgiving. Like, this is really exactly what happened in North Korea. The regime told us when we can go out, what we wear, what we sing, what we listen to, what we watch, and people get even executed in North Korea to watch a wrong movie. And like, it just begins like this.
That's horrifying. I've heard a lot about smuggling for people trying to get things into North Korea. Is that, when you were there, I suppose, was that common, or like, did people talk about it? Or is it a certain group of people that are able to get things into that country and try and get them out? How does that work?
Yeah, so like, it's because North Korea and socialism, trading is technically illegal. You cannot, governments need to like make all the money, make all the resources, and like distribute to people equally, right? So you cannot, in North Korea, you cannot own a car, you cannot own a house, you cannot own anything. There's no private property. You cannot even like own a cow. That's the thing. So, but the people, like, because the regime stopped giving people food in the 90s, then what do we have to do? We have to find a way to survive. And like, that's the natural thing people do, is a trading. That is how the trading begins. Like, that's the only way we can survive. And then some people in the border town went to China and brought goods and started this like smuggling business. It's not like everybody does it, but it's only like in the people who live in the border towns who does like smuggling and able to do some of that. But now it's completely shut down with the COVID, everything. No way anyone can do that right now.
Let's say there's no government that's going to take this problem on. Mm-hmm. Do you think North Korea can continue going? Or because everyone, like you said, is starving, is the problem going to go away at some point? Mm-hmm. Or do you think this could last for quite a while?
If I didn't see how Chinese Communist Party solidifies their power with technology, like, I wouldn't, like, now I say I don't know, because look at China. Even though they're opened up economically, their political power is stronger than ever before. People like have these social credit systems, and they cannot even take the bus if they were not a good citizen in the eyes of the like Communist Party.
And that's in China?
Yes.
See, I don't know anything about this either.
So face recognition cameras are everywhere. They track your app while you write. Everything's being censored. If you said something wrong and wasn't a good citizen enough for the Communist Party, you are not even allowed to buy a train ticket to see your family. You lose your freedom of movement within China even. Not to mention getting transferred abroad. Yes. So this is like happening in China. This all AI, the face recognition, and all this technology has been going against for the individual liberty. And this is happening in North Korea as well. Kim Jong-un has been buying all this technology from China, putting in the towns. Remember like 1984? people see your camera and like they know what you think. So people like there's no way you can escape that surveillance. Big Brother is watching it all the time, and that is happening right now on this earth. And that was when China mastered that and in North Korea, even in the poor situation, can't even afford electricity. They are buying these things from China, putting it on the borders, putting on the towns so they can see who's out there, who's not, who is the wrong person is in that town. Because in North Korea, you need like permit to even go to a different city. You're not even able to travel within your own country. So that's how they restrict, control everybody and surveillance on everyone. And like that's why, like, I mean, everyone we thought like, oh, freedom is not prevail, we're gonna win this battle. Like, no, like we gotta fight it. Like, freedom is not free. Like there's like price for it to pay for.
So how come this? I'm feeling uneducated during this podcast, but like, how come these issues with China aren't on the front of newspapers?
Because I mean, New York Times, CNN, and BBC. Everybody needs their money from China. Like, do you know how China money give all the money to Harvard, Yale, MIT, all these Ivy League schools? They don't teach this stuff. They are not allowed. They are taking so much funding. A lot of like Ivy League schools getting funding to do the certain research, and media companies also. I mean, Hollywood. Like, look at Disney this time. They were making this movie Mulan, where there are concentration camps for the Muslims. In Xinjiang, they sterilize women, they rape them. Like they go like forcefully like sterilize men and women so these Muslims cannot have more babies. And their generation ends right there. Right now this is like happening. And like this is like not the of course main story on New York Times. We are not gonna know.
Yeah, it seems slightly more important than COVID.
Definitely. It's definitely more important than anything that. Yeah, it's like, I mean, can you but imagine that, like, if somebody told you last year that someday government is gonna have this much power, make you sure that you cover your face every single time when you're outside, and you cannot travel, you cannot eat in, like, would you have believed it?
Yeah, no, that's very true. If you just described what's going on here now a year ago, people would have said no.
But that's the thing, like, how people can make fun of North Koreans not revolting. This is how it all began.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody like going on the street and fighting for our like rights right now, right? We just all accept it because the government says it.
Yeah, although right now they're using the excuse, like, I don't know what they do. You can tell me what they do in North Korea, but here they're using the excuse is keeping people safe, right? Mm-hmm. The reason that we're doing all these is so that there are fewer deaths. So how do they, like, what do they say? I mean, in North Korea, it's straight up, we'll kill you, right?
No, it's all manipulation. They say that our enemies, like, of course, like American bastards, right? They try to attack us. So it's like in 1984 Georgia where there's like enemies always trying to attack us. And then our dear leader who's brave enough to defend us and keep us safe. Therefore, we have to obey. And then eventually when we suffer on this life, when we die, we are going to all go to like socialist paradise with him and have forever eternal great life.
Okay, so it's the same thing. It's for your own safety.
Yeah, it's for your own safety, your children's future. Like, the regime is sacrificing so much for you. So I sincerely believed when I was in North Korea that dear leader was starving for me. I cried, my heart broke because I thought he was starving and suffering for our people. And I was like so touched and so grateful, like eternally grateful for him. They are never gonna say I'm doing this for my sake. They're gonna always say it's all for your sake. That's always the manipulation comes.
That's scary. That makes the current situation here a little bit more concerning.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So say something more positive then. We'll get back into the negative though.